So here we go. So the question is, in numbers, is there a way to do a wildcard search? Like say if you wanted to search for numbers that had the digit 0 in them, could you do it? And yeah, you could do so many things with numbers, but it's just a matter of wrangling the formulas and the functions and everything. So here's a quick example. You can see here I've got just just random strings, just pieces of text here. And the formula I'm using here is the search formula, which is for text. I'm doing search and I'm looking for the letter A in this cell. And since it finds it at position 1. It says 1. Here I'm doing the same thing, looking for A, and it doesn't find it, and it gives me an error, which isn't really a good result. So the next thing I want to do here is I change those formulas to look for, in addition to searching for A, to do is error, and basically return a true or false based on if it finds an error. So in this case, false, no error, and in the next cell, true, because there is an error, which is like kind of the opposite of what you want, because you want to find things that have the letter A in them. So then the next thing is to reverse that, and to reverse that, you just use not. So I put not around it. So I basically have a search with an is error wrapped around it, and a not wrapped around that, and that gets me a true when the letter A is found, and a false when it's not found. And you could do the same thing with numbers, because the search function doesn't really care if it's a string or a number. It will assume that if it's a number, you want to search it like a string, because search is a text function. So here I've got my formula that looks for the digit 0, and it's saying true if it's 50, because it has 0 in it, but 73 does not have a 0 in it, so it returns a false. And if I wanted to, I could do multiple ones of that, with an if, or sorry, not with if, but with or, putting an or around it. So I could do like, this, and put or, and wrap or around the statement here, and then put a second version of this in there. And now I'm looking for, say, 1. So if I'm doing, it does have a 0 or a 1. And the results are the same here, but if I did 71, you can see it returns true because it has a 1 in it. So that is how you would do that. Now, there are probably other ways too. This is just the first one that came to mind right away. So that's that. And there we go. So that's how you would do a wildcard search for a digit in a number in numbers.
Okay, please announce your name and your questions.
Dick Shapiro. Hey, Gary, I get a picture on my text message, but I am unable to send it to my wireless printer because the print option doesn't, I can't find it anywhere on my iPhone. It's an iPhone 10.
Oh, so it's an iPhone. So are you able to print anything else on your iPhone?
No, I don't get a printer. But the printer works because I can do it from my computer or my iPad, but not on the iPhone.
Is it an AirPrint printer?
No, it's a wireless printer, AirPrint, I guess. I have an AirDrop message. That's it.
Yeah, it's different. That's a different thing. So, I mean, a printer can be a wireless printer. I had a wireless printer like 10 years ago, but AirPrint's newer, maybe 5 years. AirPrint's been around, and it should, it would be something they would advertise with that printer that it's AirPrint compatible, and that means you can use iOS, and it should find it on the Wi-Fi network and allow you to print to it. If it's not AirPrint compatible, then there's no easy way to do it. I think there's a way to set up your Mac as an AirPrint server for it, which is kind of a convoluted way. Your best bet is probably just to save the AirDrop or somehow send that photo to your Mac and then print from your Mac. If it's not an AirPrint.
I thought you told me, Dick, that the phone will print from mail and from other programs. Or it won't print from any book?
It just won't print from the message.
So it will print. It will print from other things, but not from messages, huh?
I think so.
Yeah, if that's the case, I'm not sure why. I mean, I certainly haven't tried to print something like in that particular circumstance. I mean, you could always just save it out, save the photo to the Photos app, and then from the Photos app, you can, print it if the print option
I just
doesn't appear.
noticed on the iPad, that pic is in the photo app, and a printer option does show up.
For just that photo or for all photos?
From my phone or from my iPad?
Oh, well, I guess either one. I mean, whichever one you're trying to print from.
Printer option shows up on the iPad.
It does. So, I mean, so you can print from the iPad,
Yeah,
but you
not from the phone.
right.
You could print it from the phone. There's a menu at the bottom.
No, he tried it.
It doesn't show up.
The printer doesn't show up.
There's a way to make it show up. I'll show you after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. we
Thank
got
you.
The hand way over to the right. Yours. Jim.
Hi, Gary. Welcome back.
Hi.
Over the past couple of weeks, we've had a number of members who did not like the number of emails that we are getting every day from the user group. And the suggestion was made to create a separate mailbox. I created a separate mailbox and I filled it by using the rule in preferences.
Okay.
And all of the mails now go to that mailbox on my Mac, but now I don't get any of them on my phone or my iPad.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's the thing. The rules, when you use rules in the Mail app on your Mac, what has to happen is the mail comes into your Mac, and then the rule is run by your Mac, and it does something with it. So if it's moving it to a mailbox on your Mac, then it's basically taking it off the server, putting it in this mailbox on your Mac, and then you'll never see it on your iPhone. The way to handle it is, instead of using rules on your Mac, use rules in iCloud. So go to iCloud.com in Safari on your Mac, go into the Mail app in iCloud.com, and there's a very similar type of rules thing that you could set up there. And then create a folder in iCloud. I assume you're using iCloud email. Create a folder in iCloud that actually is the place where all that's put. And then that rule happens on the server. So the email comes into the iCloud email server, it's put into that folder, and you should see that folder everywhere you get your mail, your iPad, your iPhone, and your Mac. If you're not using iCloud email, it can work in other email services as well. Gmail, definitely. Gmail has, they call them filters, not rules. But you can go to gmail.com and look at the web version of Gmail, and there you could set up folders. They're called labels on Gmail instead of folders. And then you can set up filters to do that filtering at the server level. And then again, you should see that folder then on your different devices. If it's another service besides that, it may or may not have that kind of filtering option. But other than that, if you do a rule on your Mac, then that rule takes place on your Mac, and it won't take place on your iPhone and your iPad, which is why I recommend nobody use those rules on the Mac anymore. I think it's a kind of antiquated thing. And I honestly can't believe it's still there in macOS Catalina. I would have thought they would have removed it by now.
Okay, thanks.
Wait a second, I want to make sure that I understand. What we're saying then is that you make the rule on your Mac, that it works on your Mac, but you don't see the email on any of your other devices. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, and so Gary is saying, create the rule in the cloud, if it's Apple Mail. If it's Gmail, do it.
Still create it in the cloud.
Huh?
Still create it in the cloud. All your rules to the cloud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just Google's cloud instead of Apple's cloud.
Mitch, if you could cover that on our next maybe one of our next iOS meetings.
In March, that's when I'm scheduled.
Okay.
One more thing, the mailbox is also to be in the cloud, not on your Mac. Cloud
Right.
is where that's mailbox is, okay.
Right.
Say that again.
May I make another suggestion regarding the inundation of emails from our organization? If you create a separate mailbox for all of Maple's email messages, why don't you ask our organization to use that email only for communications between Naples Mug and you? I have done that, and in our database, there's, that particular email address is shown, and all correspondence, all communication I receives goes automatically to that mailbox.
But then does it show up on all your other,
Yes,
okay,
if I create the mailbox there as
Yeah.
well.
okay.
And back home, we have a listserv, and a while back, they went to these Google Groups things, and that solved all the problems. Have you guys explored Google Groups and going from Yahoo Groups to Google Groups?
No, we haven't, and it seems that many of our members might object to utilizing Google. It's just, some people just prefer to not get involved with Google and so forth.
Not as private.
And not, over the privacy issue. And we did entertain that thought, but it looked like it was going to create some dissatisfaction from some of our members. And so far, it appears that the function that we really are trying to utilize Yahoo for still does exist. And if we can overcome this mail issue, we're okay. Yes.
I'm Alan Weinstein. I'm one of these snowbird kind of people, so I'm my first meeting down here. I'm contemplating buying a MacBook or a MacBook Pro, but I'm worried about this butterfly keyboard thing. So I'm wondering if anybody in the group or maybe even our guests have any experience with the butterfly keyboard, and when they first came out, it was a lot of flurry about activity or problems with it, but recently I haven't seen any mention of problems. So what's the story with this butterfly keyboard?
Well, see this is my MacBook that I use. It's either its third or fourth keyboard. It's a 2016 13-inch MacBook Pro. I bought it from the Apple refurbished store, which is always a good deal. So I have to think that maybe when I got it, it has its second keyboard. Maybe not. There's no way for me to know. But I do know I've had the keyboard replaced twice. So third or fourth keyboard that this is on. Butterfly keyboard. I believe the 2016 was the second generation of Butterfly keyboard. And I think it has a third generation Butterfly keyboard now based on the characters changing slightly on the keys. So I certainly know this problem pretty intimately. The good news is, of course, the new 16-inch MacBook Pro doesn't have a butterfly keyboard. It has the new the new but also old scissor mechanism keyboard, which should not have the same problem as the butterfly keyboards. And hopefully, Apple will be coming out this year with 13-inch, or probably they'll call it 14-inch MacBook Pros to replace the current ones that also use the scissor mechanism. So if you're concerned about that, you might just want to wait and find that all of the MacBooks have the new scissor mechanism.
Gary, you sort of froze for a while. What was the last statement you made?
Oh, well, you may just want to wait because I think that there'll probably be new MacBook Pros, at the smaller size, 13-inch or 14-inch, depending upon what they'll call it, and those will have the new scissor keyboard. So at some point this year, they should all switch over. So if it's something you're concerned about, you may want to wait for the new MacBook Pros, the new 13-inch MacBook Pros to come out. Or if it's a 16-inch that you want, you can just get the one that's out there now because that's the new keyboard. And that 16-inch is a really good deal. Like the lowest one you could buy is actually a really good computer as long as you don't mind the size. If you want something light and compact, then it's not for you. But if you don't care about that, well, I think it's like $22.99 or something for a 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is really powerful, actually. I haven't, the MacBook Airs, if you're interested in one of those, it just doesn't seem like the butterfly keyboards from those are as bad. I just seems like every time I hear about somebody needing a new keyboard, it's always a MacBook Pro, never a MacBook Air. I don't know if anybody there has had experience with having a bad butterfly keyboard on an Air, but it just doesn't seem as likely. I'll let other people too, if anybody else has had experience with that.
I don't want to keep dominating this discussion, but I do have the question. I'm a really simple user. I don't do a lot of complicated things, and I'm still not clear the difference between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro.
Mm-hmm.
First.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because they kind of overlap a little bit in price. The MacBook Air is a little bit lighter, and so if you really want something that's light and super thin, then the MacBook Air, is probably what you want. The MacBook Pro is a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, but it's more powerful. However, the low-end MacBook Pros, like if you get a 13-inch MacBook Pro, like the base model, isn't that different from the MacBook Air, and they're about the same price. So what you really need to do is go into an Apple store or Best Buy or any place that has both of them and just kind of try them out, like lift them up, see if like you look at the MacBook Pro and say, oh, I like this better, then, get that. But if you look at the MacBook Air and you like that design better, then get that. They really do overlap. So you're not the only one that kind of might be between, which one to get and which one not to get. The only really clear difference between the Pro and the Air is that you can upgrade the Pro. Like when you buy it, you can get a more advanced MacBook Pro that is way more advanced than any MacBook Air that you can get out there. So on the higher end, MacBook Pro is the clear winner. But if you want something low end, simple, then really you go with either model.
More questions, please?
Now the dashboard is gone with Catalina. What do you do to substitute for dashboard?
So for dashboard, I never used it too much, but the substitute really has been for a while the widgets in the notification center. Here, I'll share my screen again. There we go. So basically, the Today widgets here, when you go and you bring up the stuff on the side, by clicking here, or there's a gesture you could use with the trackpad, 2 fingers, swiping in from the right side of the trackpad will bring this up. And it has these widgets here. They're very similar to some of the primary widgets that were there in Dashboard. And this has actually been around for a while. So there's been an overlap, up until Catalina. There were several versions of macOS where you could have the dashboard and have like a world clock and a calculator and all that. And you could also have it here in the notification center. And there are all these different widgets. You can edit and you can add new ones. I have them all added here because I just did a video on this. But here are 2 that a third-party app added. So there are third-party apps that you can get. Matter of fact, you click on the App Store button there at the bottom. It shows you apps that have widgets that you can add. Now, it's definitely not as many widgets as was available on Dashboard, and Dashboard had some cool things that you could do, like you could take a piece of a web page and use that as a widget. But for a lot of uses, you could substitute this Today view for it. Other than that, you have to go with like a full app for anything else, that you want to substitute.
Are they all gray or are they in color?
Those were mostly in color, I think. I mean, some of the stuff at the top, like the world clock and stuff, didn't have much color in it, but like the stocks used red and green and whatever. It's just for, however the developer makes the widget.
Thank you.
Yes, Marcia.
Okay, hi, I'm Marcia. In the new iOS, whatever it is, 13 something, how do you update the apps? The old way was so easy. You'd go to the App Store and it would say update all. That is gone.
Actually, it's definitely still there. So I'm not going to try to share my iOS screen because that'll be too many steps. But there are two things I want to show. First of all, under settings, if you go to, I believe it is, let's see, in settings, if you go to iTunes and app stores, there's a setting for app updates. If you turn that on, you never have to worry about it because the updates happen automatically. But if you don't want to have that turned on, if you want to do it manually, then you still can do it. The trick is you go to the App Store app, and at the top right corner, you see the little icon that represents you. You tap on that, and that goes to an account screen. And on that account screen, you'll see the update all or a list of updates, and you can update them individually. Or in my case, since I have app updates set for automatic, none of that is there, and it just shows me the list of recent updates, which is handy because you could read all the notes about what has changed.
Okay, follow-up question. I have that set automatically, and on my home screen, I have a lot of little clouds, which means they're not updated.
Oh, so
And
the clouds are something different. So
okay, what is that?
the clouds are for, if it's what I think it is, I can't tell for sure without seeing your phone, but it's for when there's offloading. So what offloading is, it's a really interesting feature. It was introduced a couple versions ago where it could keep the data for an app, but basically remove the app from your phone, keep the icon there. When you go to use it, you tap on it and it loads the app and brings it up. And this is a way to save space. So you could have, say, a phone with 32 gigs of memory of storage and have 100 gigs of apps on it. It just offloads the ones that you don't use as much or haven't used for a while. And you could set that. That's in, let's see, if you search in settings for offload unused apps. So it's under general iPhone storage, and there is a setting there for offload unused apps, and you can enable it or disable it there. And there's also, I believe, when you enable it, I think then there's options for, allowing or not allowing them for certain apps. And also in that same screen, when you do, when you're in general and an iPhone storage, you'll see a list of apps and how much space they take up. And you could go into an app and look at how much space it's using. And there's a button there for offload app. So for instance, GarageBand is a big app. It's 1.7 gigs. And you may like to have the GarageBand app on your iPad or iPhone, but you may not use it that often. You can go in and say, offload it, give me back that 1.7 gigs of space, but all I need to do to get it back is tap on the app and it will load it up. So you can kind of get that app back and all the data and settings are saved.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mitch?
Hi, Gary. I've been off and on your site for years, and I have to admit I've been off lately. It's sort of a year or two ago got a little complicated. Could you just go highlight your site a little bit and tell us, is there a subscription rate, and just maybe give us a quick overview?
Sure. So so it's a completely free site, macmost.com. It's free. There's no user sign up or anything. It's basically just a site filled with content. I post usually 5 new video tutorials every week, Monday through Friday. You can view them there on the site. You can view them. I also upload them to YouTube, and I also put them onto a podcast that you can get the video podcast if you want. So all the content's free there. I'm right around 2,100 videos now. I've been doing it for more than 10 years. And you can search on the site. There's also a forum there where you can ask questions, and I'll answer them. As I said, there's no sign up, there's no subscription or anything like that for that. You can subscribe for free at YouTube just to get little notifications. You also can subscribe to my newsletter, which I send out every Thursday morning, and that's free too. It's just an email newsletter that I send out every Thursday morning, and it just lists the 5 videos and any other new stuff I've got going on at the site. A lot of people like to do that just to keep up with it instead of remembering to go to the site all the time. I do have, in addition to that, courses that you can, you pay and you can enroll in a course. And I also have a Patreon where people can contribute money to supporting the site.
What was that website again?
The Patreon?
Gary, why don't you explain what Patreon
Yeah.
is?
So Patreon is a website where creators are connected with contributors. So it's kind of similar if you think about like the NPR or PBS thing where they you can contribute, but you can actually listen and watch the stations for free anyway. It's similar to that. So I sign up as a creator, and other people can come in and say, I'm going to contribute, say, $5 a month to supporting MacMost. And there's kind of like a private little chat there with contributors where I can post extra bits. And sometimes I post little articles or extra videos to that, but not the main video content. And that's just a way to support the site. So instead of asking everybody, if you want to see the content, you got to pay this amount, I can say it's free, but if it's within your means and you'd like to support MacMost, then here's a place you can go and sign up for a monthly contribution to support the site.
Gary, you might want to mention actually why you did that.
Yeah, so originally MacMost had ads. So MacMost is kind of strange. If you look at the site, you'll notice there's no advertising at macmost.com. And there used to be, right? For years, I had the same ads that you find at every other, site out there, right? But I hated the ads because a lot of them are junk. A lot of them are scammy, right? And they track you, all sorts of bad stuff. Even sometimes they'd be things that were counter to what I was saying. I would say, like, don't use a cleaner app, and there'd be an ad right next to my video for one of these really bad cleaner apps that you would, you were trying to be conned into buying or whatever. So I got sick of it. So I came up with the idea of doing Patreon, just like lots of other people do. There are like all sorts of other websites and people that create content that are on Patreon. So I thought if I could do Patreon and replace the advertising money with people that just wanted to contribute directly to me, then that would be a huge win because I can get rid of all of the ads from MacMost. The site would be faster, look better, and I wouldn't have to feel weird about like people seeing all these horrible ads and having tracking codes and cookies and all that stuff. And it worked. Within 90 days, I had reached the goal where I said, I'll take advertising off of MacMost. And it's kept up, since then. I think I have more than 550 people contributing on a monthly basis to MacMost now. So it's been great for MacMost. The site is better, and I could forget about having those ads on the site.
Is there a link on your MacMost page to that?
Yeah, right at the top right corner. If you look at the site, any page on the site, it says "Welcome to MacMost" near the top right, and it says MacMost is brought to you thanks to a community of supporters. Join us, and you can click on that, and it takes you right to more information about the Patreon campaign and all that.
Could you spell MacMost?
Wait, David, what?
Could you spell out the site? It's not clear to me what you're saying is the site that.
MacMost, M-O-S-T.
M-O-S-T.
Thank you.
MAACMOST.
Thank you.
Alan Weinstein again. Topic now is the iPhone. I've had an iPhone 8 for a couple of years, several years now, and it's got a slightly cracked case and the camera stopped working. So I have 3 or 4 choices. I can replace the camera for about $150. I can get a new iPhone 8 for about $395. I can get a 10 XR for about $595, and I can get an 11 for about $795. So I'm trying to understand what, with all these options. I mean, anybody have experience with the various different phones and which one is kind of, anybody have a consensus on which one is kind of the best one to get?
Spend the most that you can afford. Because you just listed them all off, and as the price goes up, the the features and the quality of the phone are enhanced significantly. And if it were my decision, I would go to the 11.
Now,
No
I
question.
Let's find out what Gary thinks.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Every level, gets you more enhancement, more future proofing too, right? Like if you were to get an iPhone 8 now in 2020, then, think 3 years from now, as opposed to getting an iPhone 11 now and 3 years from now, right? How much further behind are you in those 3 years? The other thing that occurred to me is it sounds like that you're pretty rough on your phones if you crack the case, like a lot of us have. And one of the features of the iPhone 11 is shockproofing, right? It's obviously still breakable. I could still, I'm pretty sure, smash this against a rock and it would break pretty easily. But it's supposed to be more durable than previous versions. So that's like one reason you might want to think of an iPhone 11 as an advancement over it. Obviously, if you treat it like you barely ever take it out of your pocket or something like that, then it maybe doesn't matter the shockproofing. But if your phone drops a lot or you're doing work where it comes into contact with things a lot, like some of us do, then an iPhone 11's got that going for it and may be worth the price.
Bill Nice?
Gary, Bill, I've read that the iWatch should not be worn in the shower. I have read that it's okay to do that.
Yes.
What's the answer?
That's correct. No. That's exactly what Apple tell you. No, so the thing is that the watch is water resistant, right? Like a lot of watches have been over time. And they use that term water resistant so that if you do take it swimming and it breaks, they say, hey, it wasn't waterproof. But they also, it should be able to resist lots of water. So yeah, there are people out there that wear it every day in the shower. There are people out there that swim with it. I think there's even a commercial showing, right? One of the Apple commercials, guy dives into the ocean. So, but each version has gotten more and more water resistant. So I don't think like I would shower or take into water the first series, but the most recent one, maybe much more likely. My personal thing, I'm not using an Apple Watch currently, although I'm thinking of getting one again. If it was up to me, I would take it off in the shower just because it's really no inconvenience to take it off in the shower. I'm taking off my clothes. I could just take off my watch just as easily, sit it down, take a shower, and then put it right back on. So it's no big deal. If I was a swimmer, like somebody that was training as a swimmer, and I wanted to use the watch for, measuring things, measuring my training, then obviously it would be a big deal to take it off while I was swimming because I'm trying to use it for that. So in that case, I would leave it on. So I think you need to really balance the fact that, you're doing something a little edgy with it when you get it wet, but it may or may not be able to take it. Is it worth it to you to take that risk? For most of us, I think no, just take it off when you get into the pool, take it off when you get into the shower. But for some of us, it would be yes, it is worth it because I want it to record biometric data or whatever during a water activity.
But the reason I hung up the Rolex and bought the Apple is if I slip and fall down, I can call for help.
Hey, that is a great reason to say, yes, wear it in the shower, right? That's a fantastic reason to wear it. So your risk is there's a small risk that maybe some water will get into it and it'll break. Probably not. But weigh that against the risk of slipping in the shower and falling. And it's a lot harder to repair you than it is to buy a new Apple Watch. So
That's it.
Yeah, on my iPad, I can easily set an alarm and select one of my tunes. When you do edit on alarm, it says pick a song.
Yeah.
And it works on the iPad with iOS 13. It does not work on my iPhone 11 Pro. Do I have to re-select the songs because they were carried over from my old phone?
I would try it. Or maybe it's a cloud thing. Are you using Apple Music or iTunes Match or something?
I'm using iTunes Match, but I've selected a song that I've purchased from Apple.
My only thinking is maybe the song isn't downloaded. You know, maybe try playing the song first in the music app,
Yeah, no, it plays.
and it plays. I mean, try reselecting it. Maybe try just adding the alarm new and see if that fixes it. It definitely should work. I never use the alarm on my iPad, but I use it on the iPhone all the time, like this morning to get up. And I set a song for it and works no issue. And I'm using Apple Music.
All right, thank you.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm working on a class on iOS 13. And there's a new gesture for text editing where for copy and paste, where you pinch 3 fingers to copy and pinch up to paste. And then I am having a terrible time making that work. It seems to work part of the time. Do you have any clues about how to make that work better?
Yeah, I don't have any specific advice except practice because it is tough. Believe me, I mean, when I did when I used those for the first time, I had trouble with those too. And the thing I do with gestures and tricky things like that is I'll just open up open up like a new note or Pages document, and I'll just keep playing with it. Just keep copy paste, and kind of figure out like maybe where I may not be using my fingers quite the right way, or what works better, like how far to pinch apart, how far to keep my 3 fingers, when doing the swipe, that kind of thing, and just practice. And usually, for me, that then makes it get better and better for me. But you can also always use the old copy and paste stuff too. I tend to default to that. I think a lot of people never use the old copy and paste stuff because they didn't like it, and the new gestures are better for them. But after years and years of using copy and paste, with bringing up the little menu and hitting copy, I'm so used to that I can't really break the habit.
In iOS 13, there's so many places where you can find a list of commands that you can do. I was just looking for a copy command in Pages, which I haven't done yet up until now. And I had to go to the more, and then I had to go to share, and then finally copy showed up there. Whereas previously you had a different system. But I noticed iOS 13 has many new places that you have to go to, and then you get a whole list of commands you can do, but you have to find that place first.
Yeah, the share sheets. I mean, if you're just copying pieces of text in the document, you should be able to, tap and make that selection and then tap on the selection, and it should come up with that little menu at the top as it always has, where it's like copy, paste, bold, and all sorts of commands. Usually there's like so many that you have to go and hit the arrow to go to the next one for just text. But then also that share sheet, that little box with the up arrow in it, they tap that, and then it gives you a ton of different options to do things. And yeah, the consistency still isn't there because you'll find things in one app that you don't find in another, and you're like, oh, that would be useful to have over here. Why isn't it there?
Like in Pages, I just went to the more button. Then I had to go to the word share instead of the icon share, which is a change. So it's you have to keep trying different places to find.
It definitely always pays to explore and experiment and all of that.
I think there was another arm, Jim.
Gary, Apple seems to have been dragged kicking and screaming into the streaming wars. I subscribed to Apple TV Plus about 2 weeks ago, and I watched the series on there, which was very good, but their library seems pretty anemic. Do you have any comments on insider information on whether that library is going to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the streaming wars is different companies have taken different tactics. Like Netflix has shows, but they also have this huge catalog of stuff they didn't make, right? You can watch movies and TV series, from the past. But other players don't really have that. So for instance, like Apple's a little bit more like HBO, and that HBO's main thing, that the reason you would subscribe to HBO which is much more expensive than subscribing to Apple TV Plus, is for their new content, right? Because you wanted to watch, different series that HBO has, like Westworld or Game of Thrones or something. HBO does have old content, but only a small selection of it. So that makes Apple kind of more similar to HBO than, say, to Netflix. And Apple's whole thing, I think, really is to develop original content. And I don't know if they're ever going to do something where they also offer old content. I would love to see that. I would love to see, like, next year them say, hey, your Apple TV Plus subscription also gets you rentals for free. And then it's kind of like Netflix, right? You have all this stuff that you could then watch in addition to Apple's content. But it's definitely a different animal. It's a different kind of thing than what, Netflix or Amazon or Hulu is. And now we've got new ones coming because we've got, Peacock is going to be, big new one, but that's also going to have a huge backlog of all the NBC content over the years. So, so Apple's got to, find its place. I think they really like the idea of being all original content, and the series stuff has been great. I mean, For All Mankind, I thought it's a fantastic series. I loved that. And I've watched almost everything except the kid shows now, and a couple of the movies I still haven't gotten to that they've produced. And some of the stuff coming up, like later this year, I'm really excited about. Especially, they're going to do a TV series on the Foundation, Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, which I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. So it's a little different, and it's basically free right now for most people, right? Because you buy a new Apple product and you get a year for free. It's not going to be till the end of this year when you have people like me who happen to buy a new iPhone. I start having to pay $5. But at that point, $5. Remember, when I start having to pay $5 is also when season 2 of all these shows are going to come out. So there's no way I'm going to stop paying $5 and miss out on season 2 of For All Mankind or, The Morning Show and stuff like that. It's like, I'll pay that in a second because I want to see those shows. Right now I'm paying $15 a month for HBO, and I'm kind of scratching my head why. Like, I guess Westworld comes out soon, and, I kind of like Barry and all that, but it's really just a handful of shows. I probably watch more on Apple TV Plus than I do on HBO for 1/3 the price.
I actually got the 1 year for free, and I don't know why. Because I've bought an Apple Pencil in the past year, but I haven't bought anything else in the past year.
I don't know. It's supposed to be when you buy a new product, a phone, a watch, a iPad, a Mac, an Apple TV box. They all qualify.
They're older than a year. So I suppose I should call Apple and tell them?
Yeah, Jim is a pretty honest guy, and it's gonna really bother him that he got it and he doesn't know why he got it. So we'll try to help you deal with that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, more questions?
When you get a third-party app, from the App Store, and they give you a 15-day or 14-day free trial, and you use it and you don't like it, and you take it off your device, off your phone or off your computer, does that automatically sign you out of a 14-day, or do you have to do something? And I see a head shaking, it doesn't. Now that I don't have the app on my phone anymore, how do I cancel that 14-day free trial?
So what you need to make sure you're doing is, if that trial was a subscription where you've signed up for a subscription to it, you need to make sure you turn that subscription off. So you want to go in settings, try to remember exactly where it is. Settings.
Before you start, I dumped it off of my iPhone or my whatever.
That's fine.
Device.
Yeah, that doesn't matter, because subscriptions, if they're active, they should still be listed there. So you want to basically go into your Apple ID settings on your phone or on your Mac or any place you access your Apple ID stuff. And there is a way, once you log into your account, look for subscriptions. And you'll have things listed like your iCloud, if you have an iCloud plan, if you've got Apple TV Plus, if you've got Apple Arcade, any of that stuff's listed, and it should also list third-party subscriptions. Like for me, it'll list the Major League Baseball, at Bat app subscription for, so many dollars per year. If you signed up for a subscription to an app, then it should list that app there. So it'll have the name of the developer and whatever the subscription is called, probably the same thing as the app. And that's where you can go and say, cancel the subscription.
Now, I never gave them my credit card number. So if they are going to charge me, are they going to charge me through the App Store, or how are they going to charge me if I never gave them my credit card?
Well, okay, so it could work two ways, right? Either the app that you got does want to charge you through your credit card, in which case, after the trial is up, they would ask you, say, if you want to continue, we need your credit card so you can pay. If that's the case, then you have nothing to worry about because you don't have the app anymore, you're not using it, you'll never get to the point where they ask you for your credit card, you don't have to do anything. On the other hand, if it's an app that you bought in the App Store and you had to sign up for a subscription to use it, then you have to go in and cancel that there in the your Apple ID account subscriptions, or it will charge you, and it does it through the App Store, just like you're making an in-app purchase. But I'm not sure, based on what you're saying, I'm not sure which one it is for that app. So it may be that you don't have to do anything, but to be safe, check your subscriptions in the your account for Apple ID to see what you're subscribed to and cancel anything that you don't want.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Marilyn?
Could you explain to us using Apple ID to open third-party apps?
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, there's a new thing out that you can somehow use your Apple ID to open other apps.
Yeah, so are you talking about the sign in with Apple?
Yes,
sign in
correct.
with iCloud?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a great security feature. This type of thing has actually been around for a while. You've probably seen it where you could sign in using your Facebook ID or using your Twitter ID or using a Google ID. Those three have been around for a long time. So you go to a new website or you're in an app and it says sign in, create an account. And usually there's an option to use your email address and create a password and sign up that way. Or it'll say sign in using Facebook. And you could just click that button and then it'll ask you is it okay if you sign in using Facebook? You say yes. And you don't have to go and give your email address and password. The problem with those systems, with Facebook, Twitter, and Google, is they're doing this for a reason. They want to know more about you. So when you sign into an app or a website using Facebook, you've made it easier on yourself because you didn't have to create a new account. But now Facebook knows you signed into this website or this app, and there's certain information that they have about you. Oh, you're using this app. What are you using it for? What are you doing with it? That kind of thing. So Apple decided to do their own thing because Apple's got this whole, privacy crusade that they're on. And they decided to say, we'll do the same thing where you could sign in using your Apple ID, but we're not going to track any of it. We're just going to do the bare minimum stuff, which is basically to authenticate you with the site or the app, and that's it. We don't want to know anything else. So it allows you to easily create an account without having to give that site your email address, without having to have another password to store, and you have all the privacy actually more privacy than you would giving them your email address. And so it's a better alternative. And Apple did this because basically it's a good system to say sign in with Facebook or sign in with Google, except that those companies track you. So Apple said, let's offer the same thing, but no companies are going to track you.
And you need to have two-part authentication.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you need to have that turned on, which everybody should, anyway. And you need to have that turned on for a lot of other things like continuity features and all that. So,
Eckert.
I have a question. I'm using the Apple Card credit card for about 3 months now, and every month I have about 30 transactions, and I want to transfer them to my financial software, which is Banktivity.
Yeah.
Right now I have to do it manually. Do you know of any way, of any possibility how to do it automatically?
Yes. Yesterday, they introduced a new feature that does that. So yesterday, if you go into the wallet app on your iPhone and you look at your statements, and so you normally would look at the statement and it would show you, like, for December, here's what I bought. There used to be, or there still is, at the bottom, a little save as a PDF, which gives you a PDF document. Now, joining that, there's another option that's export as a text file. For, it's basically a comma separated text file that you can import in Numbers or Excel.
She's watching and I'm watching.
So it isn't, depending upon which software you're using, it may not be a direct transfer, but you can get that as the spreadsheet. And then from there, depending upon how your whatever software you're using works, you can import that in. You may have to change something or whatever, but you do have that as a spreadsheet now. That was just introduced yesterday.
Thank you.
Mitch?
Yeah, this is sort of a futuristic, take a shot at it, but
Talk to you
I
later.
just read an article the other day that, the new processor coming out next year for the iPad and the iPhone is going to be probably faster than the processor, or just as fast as the processor for the laptops. So my question is, when are these going to merge? Because it really is frustrating when you pull up something like Pages or Keynote, and there are many more options available on the computer than there are on the iPad. And I'd like to, instead of cut the cord, cut the Mac, so to speak. So could you comment on that?
Well, I mean, I think apps like Pages and stuff have been getting closer and closer to each other, particularly as they introduce new features, and they introduce them for both the iPad and on the Mac at the same time. So they're still not exactly the same, but they're over time they're going to get closer, especially now that there's iPad OS. So they've broken off, iOS into an iPad version and a iPhone version. And like one of the main differences that they started off with is, Safari now is a lot more advanced on the iPad than it is on the iPhone. It's always been a little bit more advanced, but now it's even gone further. So I think they may be taking it in that direction too, with maybe Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, although maybe not. They may keep all that stuff on the iPhone too. I mean, definitely with iPad OS, Apple has, shown their intention to be very serious about the iPad being a laptop replacement, and encouraging people that, that's your low end one there. You've got your MacBook Pro, you've got your MacBook Air, and then you've got an iPad, or an iPad Pro is like the next one after that. You can get it for cheaper than those, and it's lighter, longer battery, all sorts of advantages and everything. But definitely I see people using iPads more now as laptop replacements than ever before. I can't do it because I'm a developer. I'm using developer software, and I'm creating videos. I'm doing video editing with things and all of that. But if I was just writing, if I was a writer, then I guess an iPad would just be fine, especially if I had a Mac on my desktop, like an iMac on my desktop. Instead of carrying around the MacBook Pro, I probably would just carry around an iPad Pro instead.
Yeah, that's what I do now.
Yeah.
But I'm frustrated on some apps that they're just not the same. They're not quite as rich on the iPad as they are on the computer.
Honestly, the main reason I have a MacBook Pro as my second Mac as the portable is because of MacMost. Is because what'll happen if I take an iPad with me on vacation as my only computer, I'll get like immediately a question saying, "Hey, on the Mac, how do you do this?" And then I don't have a Mac with me to actually like look at the steps and answer the question. So for me, I'm probably stuck always having a MacBook as my second Mac. But that's particular to my situation. I think if I was just, a writer, or even if I still did video and photography work and writing and not development, I'd probably have an iPad Pro. The new iPad Pros are fantastic, and there'll probably be one this year that, makes it almost too good to ignore. I'd probably get a new one this year.
Gary, are you one of those guys that works all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. When I started off, I basically made my hobby my job, and that sounds great. Oh, hey, I made my hobby my job, but then you realize you have no hobbies anymore. You just work all the time.
Lydia, did you have a question?
I did, but it's very simple. I just didn't know how to remove the star next to my contact list. I think that represented an emergency contact. I don't seem to be able to edit that.
Oh, so like star, so like a VIP. I'm trying to remember now if I don't think there's a way to do that in the actual contacts app. What you need to do, you're on a Mac, right?
On my iPhone.
On your iPhone. Because I know on a Mac, in the Mail app, you can go and tap on the like when you send or receive something, you tap on their email address, and you can then set it. Let's see if you can do that on the iPhone too. Yeah, I think so. In the contact in Mail. Let me see if you can do it in the Contacts app. I'm just looking on my phone now. In Mail, you can definitely do it. In Contacts, if I go into that, it's called VIP, and trying to see if there's a way to do it in your. Doesn't look like there is, so it's the same. So in Mail or in Messages, I think too, you can, if you see their email address there, their name, you can tap on that, and it kind of opens up. I think you have to tap on it twice, and it opens up like a little bit of information about them, and it'll say either add to VIP list or add to VIP or remove from VIP. And the star, it means they're a VIP. So you just want to remove them from VIP, and then that star should go away, and they're no longer on your VIP list.
Marcia, is that what you were showing
No,
there?
emergency contact.
Oh, emergency contact. That you would go into, I think, the health app, right? And or is it health profile, medical ID? Just looking through all the stuff. Yeah. So you go into the health app on your iPhone. You go into the medical ID under details. And then down there, it lists emergency contacts. You hit the edit button at the top of the medical ID screen. And now you can remove people from emergency contacts on that screen.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm carried away with my questions, but I recently cut the cord not cut the cord, but I bought an iPad Pro, and I'm finding it very hard to get used to using the operating system. I look for drop downs. I don't see drop downs. I don't have an arrow. I have to touch my finger and all of this. It's very, very foreign, and it's very, very uncomfortable. Is this something that is a learning curve, or is this a chronic issue that I'm going to have with this iPad all the time? I mean, I'm reaching the end of the line. I could return it in the next 3 or 4 days, but after that, it's mine. If I returned it and then I bought it again a week later, would they remember that I had bought one before, and would they not give me another 2 weeks? What's the whole story about that?
I don't know about that second thing about returning and getting it again, but it definitely is a learning curve. I think one of the things a lot of people don't do when they're faced with a learning curve like that, like moving to iOS from the Mac, is taking the time to play around with it without having to do anything. Like we tend to have it and say, okay, I got 3 emails. Let me answer those 3 emails. I want to do this thing. I want to try to do this thing. And you'll get through the learning curve doing that. But what's easier is to actually take the time and do things that you just make up. Like say, I'm going to open up Pages on my iPad and just play. Just going to type some stuff. I'm going to think about things I might want to do. Let me try copying. Let me try pasting. Let me try all these different buttons. What do these different buttons do? experiment with each one. In the mail app, try writing an email to yourself, playing around with the settings, playing around with the signatures, just taking time to just play with it. And that helps you get through the learning curve faster. And a lot of times that'll teach you things that you would never learn otherwise. There may be something you can do on your iPad that you'll never find unless you just play around, because you'll never know that you could do it. So you never think that, I could do this at this point. That's what I do. I mean, whenever I get, something new, or there's a new update, like, iOS 13 comes out, first thing I do is I just play around with it. If a new app comes out and I want to, learn it, I just play. I have tons. If you look at my iMovie and like Pages and Numbers and all that, filled with test documents. I mean, like iMovie, my iMovie projects are like test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, test 5, all this stuff. And they're all just represent things where I think, oh, I want to play around with transitions today. Try all the transitions in iMovie and see what they do. And, that's how you get through like a learning curve with something like learning the iPad.
I'm only allowing you one more question.
Okay. I had an old MacBook Pro whose screen died.
Yeah.
So I took it to the store and I downloaded both sides of that MacBook Pro. I have one side, my wife has another side. We downloaded everything onto an external hard drive.
Uh-huh.
Now, when I connect that external hard drive to my iMac, I can open up and look at my side, but when I try and open up and look at my wife's side, it says I don't have permission. So if my wife tried that, she doesn't have a separate side on the iMac. So the iMac is going to think she's me, and it's not going to give her permission to open it up either. So how did we get permission to open up the other side?
I'm not sure. You have to play around with it. I mean, you're, the admin, so you should eventually be able to give yourself permission to look at all that stuff. How did you save that to that external drive? What did you use?
Well, I went to the Mac store locally in Washington, and they put it on the external hard drive. I don't know how they did it, but they put it on the external hard drive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they did exactly, but I mean, she should still try it on her Mac because it sounds like it's user account based.
But I can't now use I can't use the other iMac because the screen is crapped out. So there's no way I could do anything on the old iMac because I can't get the screen to work.
Well, on your current Mac though, you could set up a new user account that's hers, that's signed in with the same credentials that she was signed in before, and then see if you can access her side using that.
Okay, I think.
I have an answer to that.
You have an answer to that question?
Yes, you have to go in and then create her account as a sign-in account, and then you have to sign in under her password, and then you go to that disk, and you should be able to find it.
Got it.
That's what I did when I had that.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Listen, Kyle could be your assistant here in Naples. Anyway, thanks, Gary.
Yeah.